My wake-up call was in 2019. I just turned 40. I just finished 3 stressful projects and I had no work for 6 months. I realized then that you can be an expert in your craft, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're an expert in really being able to sell it. The coaching is something I actually trained in. When you learn these type of skills, but there's a difference between doing that as a skill and then selling it. Those two things you've got to separate out. Otherwise, you risk making your facilitation career much more of a hobby than a viable business. I started my career as a high school teacher. I nearly became an investment banker. I have a friend that cashed out of a fintech that he started, made a lot of money, and I'm like, I'm doing good work in the world, I'm helping people grow.
Welcome to another day, another workshop. Today I'm excited to welcome Pedram Parasmand, a program design coach and facilitator who helps self-employed coaches, trainers, and facilitators turn their expertise into premium programs that sell. He has over 20 years of experience designing learning experiences and workshops for the most amazing brands like Netflix, Amazon, and Mural. Without further ado, let's welcome Ped.
Oh, hey, thank you for having me. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I know we were just chatting before and I was just sharing how excited I am to have this conversation with you. So yeah, you get to
likewise.
Jump in.
Yeah, we were having a casual chat and then I love the chat so much. I was like, it's a shame that we keep this conversation for ourselves. So let's record a podcast anytime soon. And so we postponed basically a big part of our discussion so that we can I can enjoy all of that now live with the audience. So Pat, tell me next to this amazing introduction and all the amazing logos I've mentioned, and there are plenty more, tell us who you are.
Well, you summarize it really succinctly there. I mean, I've been in the game of designing, learning, and facilitating since the beginning of my career. And I'd say the only thing I'd just add here is that I just love geeking out about blending two things like learning design and entrepreneurship so that we can all have a bit more impact. Because what I realize is that those two things have so much overlap, and the sensibilities that we have as learning designers or facilitators or coaches actually can directly overlap with some of the things that we can do in entrepreneurship to kind of meet people where they're at, to kind of to empathize with them, to be able to create products and services that meet their needs and us to feel good about doing work we love. That's really I guess the driving force behind all of the things that I've been up to.
Yeah, that's really cool because usually you don't have the two spectrum, right? You either have someone with the right skills in facilitating and designing those amazing programs, or you have the hardcore salesperson teaching you how you can do it. But basically today you've done fine. You've done and you are doing both. So I think that's really cool for the audience. And today, Pedram, when I would like to discuss sales and business and mindset. And I think what is interesting is a bit your journey to becoming an entrepreneur and understanding why you need to learn more about sales and to be more successful in what you do. Can you walk us through this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was briefly sharing with you. I started my career as a teacher, as a high school teacher. And this is one thing I didn't tell you. I nearly became an investment banker. I studied theoretical physics at university. That's what all of my friends did. I actually have a friend that cashed out of a fintech that he started, made a lot of money. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing good work in the world. I'm helping people grow. So yeah, I started off as a physics teacher and I brought to that some facilitation skills that I'd learned the summers before when I was a university student. So this is going back to the year 2000, revealing my age. I know you can't quite see the grey hair, and especially if you're listening to this on the podcast. But so that's I was a teacher for a while, and off the back of that, I ended up working at an education charity doing leadership development for teachers. And again, facilitation skills, learning design was at the core of the work that I did. And it was then when I thought, you know what, I'd like to just set up my own business. So I did. 2011. And by 2015, I was full time doing that. And that's how I got into the world of being self-employed, doing this facilitation stuff. And yeah, there's a few kind of pivots and useful connections that I made in that time. And I don't know where you want me to kind of stop with this story, but I think the thing that's really relevant based on what you shared around what we're going to talk about was that in the first few years of me being in business, I was lucky enough that the people that knew me would know that I was available and would call upon me to design workshop, run trainings, create programs. And I got referrals from there, repeat business. People would say, hey, here's an opportunity. Would you like to do a joint venture? So we would do that. And I was always being invited to do that kind of work. Now and again, I networked and found my own work. But my wake-up call was in 2019. I just turned 40. I just finished 3 stressful projects and I had no work for 6 months. That was it. And I was like, and there was like all those like self-doubt around, I almost had like an identity built around, I'm always in demand. I made a joke that my business development strategy was like opportunism because that's really what it was. And yeah, I guess like the point I'm trying to make here is that I realized then that you can be an expert in your craft. You can be known to be an expert in your craft, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're an expert in really, I don't want to use the word monetizing it, but just like you might not be an expert in really being able to sell it. And there's a big difference there.
Yeah, but you can be the best out there if no one knows it. Like they're not going to use your superpower. So definitely you need to market it so that you get the next opportunities. And how did shifts like happen? Like, I guess like you realized it, but then like a lot of people are scared to learn about like sales and like being more visible to get those opportunities. How did you face that, and how did you become like who you are today?
Yeah,
From that perspective.
Really good question. Yeah, I don't know if this kind of resonates with anybody else listening to this, but I think I had a really weird misconception around, or a faulty belief, let's call it that, around what sales and marketing is and what it isn't, right? So I thought it was like being pushy. I thought it was just a bit about me, and like just really trying to get people to buy my services because I'm deceiving them, rather than people going, hey, I see what you're doing and I need some of that, which is like the what we all want. And so it was definitely a decision which I decided to address after I came across a phrase I'd never heard before, but it's quite common. Feast or famine. Have you heard of this?
No.
The feast or famine cycle. And it's a lot of freelancers experience this. You're either feasting because you're really busy with work, lots of client projects, or you're in famine because you haven't done the business development to get the work and suddenly you're like starving, right? And that's kind of where I was at. And so the mentor that I eventually worked with, I heard him talk about this and I was like, you get me, like, you know what this is about. And so, yeah, I decided to get help. And that's when I realized that there's a lot of overlap between the work that we do as learning designers and facilitators and actually the process of sales and marketing. It's actually almost the same thing because it's fundamentally about being people-centered. And I mean, we can talk about that in a minute if you want. But yeah, that's what I did.
I love it because I think it's Naizi who had this image, like basically what you do as a facilitator with groups is what you should do with your client, and this is how the magic will happen. And I think this showing how similar it is and how you're seeing it now, I think can like reduce some barriers that people put in front of sales. So tell us how those things are so similar.
Yeah. Okay. You know how when you go and design a training or a workshop or just something where you're going to be creating a workshop for a group of people, the first thing you will want to do is ask questions like, who are these groups? Who are the people who are going to come to this workshop? What problems have they got? What are they trying to achieve? Right? You're asking these questions that give you the bookend, like the beginning and the end. And then based on that, you decide on the activities that you're going to put in that takes them from where they are to where they want to be. And you want to make sure that the thing that they get at the end is useful for the thing that they're trying to do next, right? Learning design. marketing and sales is exactly the same, except you're not thinking about the people directly in the workshop. You want to be thinking about the person who is deciding whether to bring you in to run this workshop. Now, they might also be in the workshop, but the problems that they're facing, the goals that they're trying to achieve, whilst they're related to the workshop, it's actually much more targeted for them. So if it's a manager or a director who has a dysfunctional team, they like or let's say like silo. There's the team working in silos, right? So for the individuals, they might feel like their contributions aren't validated. They might feel like they're doing repeated work. They might feel like they are, it's just inefficient, and all the inefficiencies is going to look badly on them, and then they might be blamed for it. For the director, the same thing will make them look bad amongst the senior leadership team. They're going to lose credibility. The projects are going to overrun, whatever it is. And so it's like you're solving the same problem, but it manifests differently. And so the focus is still human-centered, but it's a different human that you're looking at.
Yeah, I like that. And hey friend, just taking a quick break from this conversation. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. I'm launching something brand new. It's called the Workshop Deck. It's 52 cards that will help you design better workshops in less time. So to celebrate the launch, I'm hosting a free live event on October 23rd, and you are invited. Trust me, you will want to be there, because I'm going to share with you the exact process I use to design workshops that get results and keep clients coming back. Plus, everyone who joins the live will get a special gift. I can't say what it is yet, but I usually sell it for 300 euros. I will also share with you a secret project I've been working on for a long time. And if you are a facilitator, leader, or consultant, I genuinely believe it could change the way you design workshops. But now, scan the QR code if you're watching this on a television, or click the link in the description. Hope to see you there. Enjoy the rest of the conversation. And I think it's interesting, like, I know I'm already going into a certain direction, but when you're going to like imagining this prospect, of course, you're going to design a session so that you can improve the way they work and remove those dysfunctions. But also the goal that you should have as someone working with this client is, how can I help in this case, having this stakeholder looks good among his colleagues, because you can see that it really bothers him to be in this situation. And this will, of course, impact the way you're going to design the session, right?
Yeah, but it's also, it impacts. So that's on the kind of the back end of, you've got the work and then you'll design the session. But on the front end, when it comes to the sales side of things, then it's like when you're either talking to them about the opportunity to help them, when you ask questions like, what's not working as well as it could or should in your team, and they go, oh, siloed working, and you go, oh, how does that manifest itself, or what's happening right now to make you think that that's a problem? Oh, how's that affecting you? Oh, what are you concerned will happen if you don't solve this? All of these questions will really drill down into the consequence of that problem and why it matters to them. And instead of it seeming like you're making them feel bad, in fact, asking those types of questions makes you much more of a partner, and it builds up the relationship of like, I get you. And this is the mindset that I realized that I already or the skill set that I realized I already had, but the mindset wasn't connecting. It's like, we are so good as facilitators, and I know a lot of facilitators are also coaches. We're people, right? We're really good at building relationships, and it's the same process in sales. It doesn't have to be, hey, I've got this workshop, you've got to buy it. It's like, you just talk to people like a normal person, ask them curious questions, and that builds relationships. And ultimately, relationships, for me, I've realized and I've always realized this, but I realize it more. It's relationships that drive sales.
Yeah. I think what I like here is really this, like, you use the term partner, because when you ask the right question, like, you can really understand what they want and what they are suffering, and you're trying to see how you can help them. And this is basically like what is selling is about, is helping someone solve his problem, and then you're going to execute by designing a session or whatever you're going to do. But I feel like the part where people struggle the most is before having this conversation. So, like, how do you find leads? So people you can like have those discussions with, so that even if you suck in having those discussions, you shouldn't because you're a facilitator, but imagine you do, and you can practice, but then you need volume. How do you ensure that you have that?
Yeah, really good question. And I know what you mean about that. Is something that it's just a struggle that I hear all the time, and I definitely experienced myself. So thinking about sales, the sales process as a step by step, think of it as a way of taking steps towards the sales versus the first call you have with someone is a sales call. That's going to be a tough thing to try and accomplish everything that you want, to build the relationship, to get all the problems, all those things. Having that in one conversation, it is possible. Like there are tons of examples in the world where that is possible. But what I found in the line of work that we're in, we need to stretch that out a little bit. So we on the program that my business partner and I have, we teach something called authentic outreach. And this is really about kind of 3-step process of initiating a conversation based on kind of common interests or common ground. And there's ways that you can do that. Building interest, so just having a conversation. And then if they are a fit, to invite them to have what we recommend is a market research call, because we're always in research mode. We don't want to presume what anybody is needing. And so, especially when you're starting out, just having a research mindset is really helpful, because you can invite someone to a call and say, look, I'm either reviewing or developing a new product or service, and I want to speak to people from outside of my network. Based on the conversations that we've had already, I'd love to pick your brains a little bit more. Would you be open to having a 20-minute conversation or 30-minute? And so that is not a sales call, but you're not hiding from the fact that there might be a sale in the future, because you're saying, I'm developing something, which is different from having a virtual coffee, which I think a lot of people try to, and I find the virtual coffees, if you're having them as a way of like a sneaky way of trying to sell the next step, a little bit disingenuous, but say that you want to ask some thoughtful questions. And so having a market research call, asking those questions, when done well, people will genuinely feel they got value from that call, because you're asking them about them, and people like to talk about themselves. That's true.
So true. But then, especially with virtual coffee, it's like, what's in it for the prospect or for the lead to engage in a conversation? And I also want to challenge you even further. Like, I get the process, like, I'm working on something and I would like to pick up your brain. And I think it can work depending of the type of fish you're trying to catch. But imagine like I'm facilitating those workshops for those leader in corporates. Like, I feel sometimes like the what's in it for them is not strong enough here.
Yeah, so I know what you mean. With people who are, especially when they're quite senior in corporates, they don't have time for this stuff. And so to navigate into corporates, it really depends, in my experience, of how big the company is, the nature of the hierarchy, and the pathway there. And it's so network driven. So you might not necessarily, and again, I'm going to talk about my own kind of experiences, but I might not have necessarily got to like I've done some work for like big multinationals, have brands that we all know about. I'm on an NDA, but I didn't know the director of these global brands personally, but I did know other people within the organization, and they were like a pathway to them, because then I had a conversation with them, like how I described it. And in that conversation, you say, are there other decision makers involved in this? And they go, yes. And then you can have that partner conversation around, okay, well, what are their opinions around this? Do they see things in the same way that you do? Do they, what kind of objections might they have about doing a 2-day strategy day like we've just been discussing, and so then you cultivate an internal champion, an advocate, and it's going to look different for different companies. I mean, my experience is that the smaller the company, the easier it is to reach the decision maker, and the quicker it is for a decision to be made.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But then there's a balancing act, is like they also don't have as big a budget. It's a balancing act between finding the sweet spot and what game you want to play, and at what kind of what time frame. Because big corporates, once you become a vendor, we were talking earlier. Amazon is a current client of mine. It took a little while to kind of get there. It took a while to do all the paperwork to become a vendor and prove this and prove that.
Prove that.
All this stuff. But then I know that every 6 months there's a particular project I help them on, and the proposal is in an email. Like, it doesn't have to even be a proposal deck or a Google Doc or anything like that.
Yeah. I always say like the hardest part is to get into the door. Then basically if you do a good work and the experience is nice, you're going to stay there. But then, and I love what you said, because I'm going to have a sales background and we've been teaching about like, the different type of buyers. So you have the technical buyer, which is in this case would be the person who give you all the information. Then you have the strategic buyer, and then the lobbying parts that will influence like the influencer. So I understand that, but then how would you approach in this case, the technical buyer, the person that will help you navigate a bit the complexity of the hierarchy and get the contract at the end?
Yeah,
is it the same approach?
Yeah, well, I haven't thought through things in the archetype of the type of buyer, and so I mean, I'm going to make the assumption that I know what you mean by the technical buyer, and they like facts, figures, information. Is that what you mean by technical buyer?
Yeah, technical buyer is basically the person who's really going to use the service they're buying. But it's just that he doesn't have
the decision
power.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh.
To make the decision. So basically, they are super important because you need to have them in.
Yeah.
But it's even if you have them, it doesn't mean that you will have the project, because you still need to convince the bigger fish.
Yeah. Well,
sorry.
No. I love this question, because the principle, I still say the same, right? You're building a relationship with the technical buyer. Those questions around what's the consequence for them if they don't solve this, because like they are living the consequences, the pains, the struggles, the worries, the anxieties day in, day out. So you, without making it like making them go and get therapy, you want to really like bring out those pains so that they are motivated to advocate for something like this internally. And so some other questions that I would ask in the process is, what is the procurement process? What's the sign-off process? What information do you need for this to get signed off? And again, if there are other people involved, let's get them on a call. If it's possible, it's not always possible, get their points of view and almost like have that next conversation with the decision makers, with you and the technical buyer partnering up to do essentially like an internal pitch, because that way there's assuming that the person has some influence with the superiors. And if not, that could be another part of your service. It's like, yeah, I'll help you look good. I'll coach you. Well, I mean, that's maybe beyond somebody's pay grade, but if you're a coach, facilitator working in, I don't know, this type of communication skills and leadership development, you may well have the skill set to support them to do that. And yeah, again, relationship based is the key. And I suppose the other thing I would say with all of this, in my experience with processes like this, it just takes longer to happen. And then something internally, there might be a shift in priority. People disappear for a while, and then 6 months later, 9 months later, you get an email and you go, "Hey, we're ready to go forward." Yeah, we're ready to go forward.
It's still a tough.
And it's like, and we need it tomorrow. It's like, fuck.
Yeah, it always makes me laugh in those corporates, because then you're like, "Hey, you remember the project we talked about a year ago? It's still on the table."
Yeah, I know. Which I would say is the reason why you want to always be initiating these conversations with people, because you just never know when someone is ready to pop. And if you're waiting for people to come back to you, you're going to be in that feast and famine, that thing I shared. But if you're regularly having these conversations, somebody at some point might be ready to get going with the project. Maybe that you've just spoken to them, or maybe they come out of the woodwork from 6 months ago. But it's about being proactive around like just nurturing people and starting conversations. And even if
keeping them warm.
Yeah. And also, even if they aren't a good fit, and even if it's not the right time, the relationship that you're building by having these market research conversations like I've shared, or even the second part of that is you have a market research conversation, you loop back to them and say, "I have something that's going to be helpful. Would you like to jump on another call where I can walk you through that?" That essentially becomes a sales conversation. And even if that point they don't decide to move forward, because of this process, like I said, you got to break up the process. You're constantly being of service. You're being of value. You're asking good questions, you're being thoughtful, you're being kind, you're being empathetic. You present a solution. Like they might even go, this is a great solution. I don't know the exact ins and outs of what you're doing, but we can take this and do it ourselves. It's not great for us ultimately if we want to pay the bills and all that stuff. But if that only happens a few percentage of the time and people are really thankful for the time that you've given them, then you're depositing goodwill in the marketplace. They're not going to think that you're a pushy salesperson. They're going to see you as being a helpful partner, and the reputation will precede you if they tell other people about you, and or they might change role. Company might shift priorities. Something might happen and they go, I had a great conversation with you about X, Y, Z. I have this other opportunity I'd love to get you involved in. And so it takes, that stuff takes a while to cultivate, and it's not going to be something that's immediately available if you're just starting out, but over time, this stuff compounds. And it's fun to then get a message from somebody that you spoke to 3 years ago and say, hey, remember me? I'm ready to work with you.
There are so many good things on what you said, like Ped, and now I need to think on which one I'm going to rebound on. But I think first, like really having this motivation to help people. When I look at the real partnership I've built with clients, and sometimes it's even design. Like I may have a discussion, I can help them, but I've worked too much with them recently. Sometimes I tell them like, I'm not the right person for this, even if I could do it. And I tell them like, this is maybe what you would need to have a bigger impact on your team. And here is some advice. Like I'm giving them like ideas of things they should do themselves. And it's like, oh, the guy is not just pushing for himself. He really wants to help me. And you use the word like goodwill. And I think the more goodwill you're willing to give, if you can say that, the more chances they will come back to you and the more opportunities you will have to cash in at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And there is also a balance between giving away too much and also potentially going in the friend zone. I know I've done that multiple times.
The friend zone of business.
You heard it in dating, now it's in business as well. Yeah, genuinely, that can happen, right? And it's about, being of service, being useful, sharing things that are helpful, but not literally giving away absolutely everything. So, something which I practice in my own, we call our sales conversations clarity calls, because they are helping people get clarity around what the problems are, clarity around what their next steps are, including whether that's working with us or not. And we say that right at the beginning of the call. But, I structure it in 3 ways, right? So you got value, pitch. So the first bit of value is asking thoughtful questions around their challenges, their goals, that type of stuff. The second part of value is, here is a roadmap, here's a strategy, personalized based on what you've shared, that can help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And this is where I have a little diagram. We'll make notes around, when you said this piece here, here's how we would solve it with you if you were going to be a client. But at the end, if they like the roadmap, the strategy, we then go, people either say, this looks really good. Can you tell me what it's like to work with you? Or you can ask, I've got nothing to share about the strategy. Where do you want to take this conversation? And they usually say, so yeah, what's working with you like? So something like that, right? And then you've got the permission to then pitch your service. And you go, okay, well, if you're going to work with us, here's what the offer is. Here's the kind of how much it costs, right? That doesn't have to happen in one call. That can happen over 2 calls or more, depending on if you need to then pitch it with like decision makers and all those things. But the reason I say that is because I'm so happy to share the strategy. And I'm happy to go into the details of the strategy. What I don't share on the call is any of the specific tools or proprietary things that we use in the process. It's like we have a way of helping you take those market research insights into a clear and compelling offer using a series of tools and a step-by-step process. It's going to take me way longer to explain it on the call, and it's not really needed either. So there is still a balance, I'd say, around be generous and share, but don't give away all everything, because then you got to give somebody a reason to want to work with you.
Yeah. No, I like the idea. I'm a consultant. Also, my full-time job is being a consultant. I can tell you there are clients taking advantage of free consultancy, and they know how to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's really finding this right balance. But I really think that I don't go also into the details of the methodology, because most of the time they don't care, or it will be Chinese for them. I can tell you, sometimes they're asking me the agenda, if we already work together, can you share with me the agenda of what you're going to do? And I was like, yes, I can. But if I share it with you, you're not going to understand what it is. So it's not going to be useful for you.
Yeah.
and you've built trust by engaging into this process. So usually okay, you're the guy, you convinced us that you're the guy, do your magic, and if the magic doesn't happen, then it's another conversation.
Yeah, whenever I ask you for the agenda, here's how I think about it. I don't know if you do the same thing. So I always, whenever it's a session, a workshop, I think about it as what's the narrative of the session. So what's the story I'm telling? And so I chunk up the day as like a story. You know, this is what's going to happen, and then I go, we'll have a break. If it's a full day, we'll have a break around 10:30 for 15 minutes. We'll have lunch around 1 o'clock. We'll have a break in the afternoon around 3:30. But it depends on when an activity finishes. And I mean, when they've got to sort out, I see their problem because they've got to sort out the coffees and, you know, the catering in an office and all that stuff is they are telling them like, when do you want to bring the coffees in? And I can see why they're being they can be very specific about the agenda and the timings, but I try
I think,
back as much
if it's for those reason, it's good reason, right? If they're going to bring cookies.
Yeah.
But sometimes me, it's more like, you know, insides, like the color of personality, like the blue person, like they care about details and methodologies. Sometimes they want to be reassured or they want to know exactly what's going to happen. So I'm like you, I just like put like alignment in the morning, then breaks and then ideation or stuff like very like high level.
Yeah.
So that I'm still like master of my own agenda and we see what happens with the flow. But yeah, like I think, good advice, finding the right balance. But I think, again, don't keep too much because sometimes keeping too much can prevent from the sales apple in the first place.
Exactly. It's not like, and we have this thing and I'm not going to tell you about it until you become a client. But it's really good. Trust me. You know, like suddenly trust goes down. It's like, no, I know. I mean, well, this actually, it really fits in with, I mean, we haven't talked about marketing, but that's kind of what I see the role of marketing is you're actually giving away some of your good stuff, but it's not necessarily in any particular order. You know, it's just like, here it is. You know, like if people go back through all of my LinkedIn posts for the last few years, you can probably piece together my process. Like, cause some of my posts are like the process at the high level. Some of my posts are like drilling into one particular thing. Some of my posts are like top 5 questions to ask about. I can't remember what I don't say top 5 thing is so much now. Like you could totally piece together everything, but I guess it's like if you want it curated, then you may want to actually just pay to work with the expert like yourself or those of you listening. You know, it's a case of, well, you get my time and my knowledge, not just my knowledge, you know, and that's the value.
I think many people in the field, they are saying like you can give the secrets away because most of them still struggle to execute. And this is why you have like those best-selling authors giving all their detailed framework.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, like it's super hard to execute. So like, I'm sure like, even if you give your process back to the people, I'm sure like 5% of the hustlers will do it and then...
No, that's it. Absolutely. And this is, I don't know whether you have come across anyone that feels very protective of even just their kind of frameworks. I remember working with somebody a little while ago who developed a framework and, you know, it made sense. We worked on it together. I really liked it. It was a 3-part framework. I like 3-part frameworks. I recommend them because it's easy to remember.
The magic number 3 or 5.
Right? And each part of the framework had 3 steps in it. So it's like becomes a 3x3. I love that shit, you know, it's like
physics. Like we see the math.
Yeah, tell me about it. And I was like, okay, well, you're ready to like start sharing it widely. And it's like, I'm not sure if I want to. What if somebody takes it? And it's like, that doesn't like, don't be so precious about it because pretty much everything you've probably done is
stolen.
Like that's what learning is. Like
you do it your own. Yeah,
you do it your own way. Yeah, but I agree.
It's funny because I'm an open source guy. You know, like I've understood this very soon in my journey. I don't keep secrets. Like if someone asks me, I just like I give. Of course, it needs to be respectful and I need to like can you send me now all the PDFs like we link to this framework? Like those can be my limits.
Yeah, well, like, let me kind of put it this way. Like, for example, I can tell you that we have a process called offer alchemy. So it's basically turning the insights from your market research calls into a clear and compelling offer. And there are basically nine steps to it. I can go through them with you right now. That's fine. But we have a pretty old school. We have a spreadsheet with, the guidance for each tab is a different part of the process. There's guidance in there. Do this, do that. And there's a table where you do this and then you kind of score things. And then there's like a little thing that kind of changes color and all that stuff. If I give that to someone, they're not going to know what to do with it unless they've done the previous step of having the market research calls and extracting that information in a particular way on another document that becomes a reference. Like it's not that I don't want to give it away. It just doesn't, it's not going to make any sense unless we're working together doing it. And that's what I mean, that's I guess a differentiation I would make around the generosity. It's like, it's not like I'm trying to hide it. It's not going to be useful. So why give it to someone? In fact, it'll probably be more detrimental to my my brand or credibility if I'm, hey, have this great thing called offer alchemy. It's going to help you. And then you give it to someone and they go, this is useless. I don't know. It's like giving somebody a car, a supercar, like a Ferrari, but without a steering wheel or petrol. It can go really fast.
It's a nice metaphor for your frameworks. No, I see what you mean. And you know what I was struggling with in the beginning is like, so I want to give stuff for free that are really valuable. And like 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀 said, like the problem with like lead magnets is like people give crap because they're afraid to give their secrets away.
Yeah.
And then people don't engage because you just give them crap. So truly believe that. So I'm giving a lot like through my webinars. And then, I have these webinars to sell my training program. Some people buy it. And then I have a series of other webinars to keep selling tickets, right? And then I see the person who already bought the tickets. Crap. They're going to see a part of the training they're going to have in the bootcamp. And I was like, then should I change it? And what I realized is at the end, and the pros are doing it, it doesn't matter that they already seen a part of it. Is when you're going to give them like the plate with all the food, it's the sequence of elements that makes sense and will make it easy for them to digest instead of just having like a piece of broccoli. And I know my metaphor was less good than your Ferrer.
Yeah. Where's the onion? Here's your broccoli.
But yeah. What's your opinion on that? Because you help people design trainings and sell them. Like, curious to hear.
Yeah, opinion about broccoli? No, seriously though.
No, about like giving, like, for example, I don't know, having a webinar on a topic that's giving something free that you usually charge for, but you usually charge for with many other
whole
things.
Package. Yeah. It's something which I've dabbled with. It's something that I haven't completely codified myself, but so I can't speak completely around this kind of regular thing. But when I have given away things in an ad hoc way, it's been a conversation starter. So, I used to do a lot of what mentor of mine, which I kind of briefly alluded to earlier, he called them hand raisers. So you say, hey, who wants this thing that you'll give? And then there's a little value. Nice. And comment whatever word in the thing and I'll send it to you. So I used to do that. And I found that was really helpful because I go, oh, hey, thanks so much for your interest in blah. Here it is. And then I go, were you kind of interested in this as some content or are you looking for some help to, do blah, 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 blah. And many people will ignore that, but some people didn't. And so it becomes an opportunity to have a conversation to see if it's worth having a call and all those things. So again, that whole idea about being in service, you're not kind of ramming sales down their throat. You're asking questions like, are you looking for some help? So I've had positive experiences from that. I haven't done it regularly on something like a podcast where you're actually giving like a trainings around that. But I've been invited to, like, the International Association of Facilitators invited me to run a couple of sessions. And I've done the same session for a different audience, which takes one element of what we do in our program called the Big Five framework that helps you kind of articulate the value proposition of any workshop or training or program. And it's actually a different way of, I presented that and ran the workshop in a very different way to how I run it in my own paid program. And interestingly, I had paid clients from my flagship program attend that as well. And I was like, hey, how's it go? I was like, how's it going? You know this. And it was like, yeah, I do, but I just want to like refresh my memory. And I had a chat with my client afterwards and he goes, it was just a really refreshing way and a useful reminder for something that I know I've already incorporated, but it just like made me think about these things again. So even when I've done something similar, my clients haven't protested yet.
It's interesting. I think, again, we are biased because we know our own framework. We know them by heart. It's like, oh, they already had that. It's going to be like, I used to be terrified, like when someone joined a webinar that already run in the past.
Yeah.
And it's the same piece of content. And I was like, but why are you here? And then I was like having this, I need to change something.
Yeah.
But then it's like, it's like a never ending story, and you cannot have the perfect thing because each time you're changing it. So I used to struggle with that. Now I'm a bit more comfortable with it. And
also, I know that you mentioned 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀 earlier. I really like him as well. And I've heard him say people need to be reminded more times than they need to be taught. And so
great one.
That makes me feel a little bit better about repeating myself.
And I think he's also saying this, and like he changed the way, like he said, like you need to be able to say the same things 10,000 times different.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, I have the same, like, especially when you've been creating content for a while. So this, like, oh, you talk so much about, I don't know, like pitching your offering. And then sometimes like I cannot say it the same way, but then like you need to find another way to say it, because if you try to find other ideas of content, at some point you will reach the limit if you want to stay relevant and consistent with, I would say, the niche you decided.
Well, also we were talking about this just before we hit record. It's like sometimes you also say something in a different way and suddenly it resonates and you're like, okay, I've tapped into something that now I'm just going to say it more like that, or I'll vary how I say it based on that versus like a scattergun approach, which might not work to begin with. And having market research conversations, in my experience and my clients' experiences, helps you cut through the noise a bit more because you can hear directly from your ideal clients exactly how they describe their problems, the consequences of those problems, and the goals that they have. So it doesn't have to constantly be completely scattered, but it can, content can definitely provide different signals. People might not even know that that's how they feel until they read something.
And now I'm going to react to something you said like probably 10 or 15 minutes ago.
Go for it.
But you were talking about this, like you want to have those interesting conversations with people with really the intent of helping them. And then maybe some point they will come back to you. And I think what is great today with like a great way to sell, which is building your own brand and creating content, is like it's a great way to keep having those people warmed up and think about it. Like you help them. Now they follow you on LinkedIn and then they see your post. So it's still somewhere in their mind that you can help them if they still have this problem, if there is another problem. Saying that, like, this is the trick I use because I'm not good at keep chatting with my prospects. Because you need to have a system, and I'm a chaotic guy at the moment, so I don't do that. I used to when I was a hardcore sales, but I don't do it anymore.
I'm surprised with your kind of background. That's like, this should be in your DNA now.
Man, you lose those healthy habits quite fast.
Yeah.
No, it's not true. Let's say like my big clients, like who like make 60% of my revenue, because they almost become friends. Like
right. Friend zones.
So of course you do it naturally. Like, oh, I found this. Like you will be interested by that.
Right. Exactly. And that's really the power of nurturing those relations. If you already had a conversation with someone, whether it's a market research conversation, whether it's a sales conversation, if it wasn't the right time, just even most people listening to this probably use Notion. Who doesn't nowadays? I think if you're self-employed and you don't use Notion, and you don't know Notion, I don't know where you've been. I know that people who work in corporates haven't heard of Notion. Just side
they
point.
Use OneNote, like
right. Because like side point, we were talking earlier. I just became a father, right? And so in the UK we have these kind of antenatal classes where you meet with other expectant first-time parents, and you're all going through the journey at the same time, and we have a WhatsApp chat and all that. And somebody was asking about like baby monitor apps, like this is completely going side. I will bring it back to CRM.
I can give you a recommendation.
Okay, no, but it was like there's one called Huckleberry or something, but it's like you log all the poos, the peas, the feeding, and all that stuff. And I was like, all right, I actually built a Notion. I built a Notion template with buttons.
You can sell it.
I know, right? I was like, and they're like, what's Notion? I was like, how do you not know what Notion is? Anyway, but you can build a very basic database in Notion, a CRM in Notion, where I have a field which is last message sent, channel I sent it, and follow-up date. Not every single person I interact with I update, but if it's somebody that feels like it's a connection I want to nurture, then it doesn't take that long. I just go into there, search for their name, change the dates, and then I've got one particular view of my database where it's like, is a scheduled check-in or follow-up due? And it's on my dashboard every day. There's a new list. And I was like, okay, couple messages to send to people, done, move on with my day. And that's a way of keeping top of mind, a much more, I guess, intentional way that content doesn't always reach people.
Yeah, especially on LinkedIn or...
Yeah, that algorithm keeps changing, right? It's never of how good or how content is. It's the algorithm that keeps changing.
At least that's the way I look at it, but I keep doing the same stuff and I never got results. It's the algorithm.
It's the algorithm. It's blacklisted me.
So, Pat, like where I was going to, because it was not clear at all, is like, how do you see the place of content creation and in sales in general? Like, is it something that you would advise to facilitators, or how do you look at it?
I've got two things to say about this, actually. The first is content is a long game. That's what I've learned, right? It's like no one piece of content is going to get you a client. And one thing which I found is that having a much more direct approach, which I talked about market research, you have the most control over that. And it's a way of getting going. If you want to do content as a parallel to support that, so if you've messaged somebody that doesn't know you or you haven't spoken to for a while and they go, who is this person? And they go to your profile. If you've got some stuff there, at least they go, okay, you're a real person with some thoughts and whatever, right? So I think that's can be supportive, but don't expect it to be your kind of lead generating machine to begin with. The second thing I'd say is be really mindful around what you're posting. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, because I think a lot of mistakes I see facilitators make is that they post about facilitation and they get engagement from other facilitators, which is great if that's your target audience. But if your target audience is somebody in a corporate, like what we were saying earlier, who is that person? It could be an archetype. What is their problems? What are their challenges? Like, speak to that and absolutely mention how facilitation or your process can solve it. But be almost like turn it on its head. So don't lead with facilitation, but lead with the person that you have in mind, because that can be really frustrating when you're going, I've got so many people who are like engaging on my posts and, but I'm not getting no clients. It's like, the wrong people are engaging in your posts. So those are the two things I would say about if you're going to do content, like set your expectations and post about the right things.
And I think you said it. I always say, like, I think even if you target, like, imagine, I don't know, I help marketing teams and it's what I do with, like, I don't know, a specific problem they have. And I use workshop to do it. Like, I'm probably sure that most of the people you will attract would be peers, because people, like, this is a bit LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn is like a big part of the people interacting, like, visibly are doing the same than you, trying to get their services sold. So they will try to be inspired to do the same, to even steal your content. But the others are consuming it quietly.
Yes.
And combined with an outreach strategy, like, this will work magic. But if you don't have the outreach, this comes like never going to sell anything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you've hit the nail on the head. It's a yes. It's a both and, right? And I'd say, just to build on that, it's something you just said around, people don't, like, they lurk and they don't engage, and you can sort of see it, right? On posts, like you'll get thousands of impressions, but only, a few dozen people that actually clicked a button to say, I like it or comment or whatever it is, right? So it's just, there's always just a fraction of people who actually engage. Most people are checking things out. And so I used to find it really frustrating when people would say to me, oh, I really love your content right now. It's like, I've never seen you connect. And so it's a double-edged sword, because oftentimes people, depending on the type of work that you do and what you write about, people aren't necessarily going to want to pop their head above the parapet, or like to expose themselves as, I have this problem, or my team is dysfunctional. I experience imposter syndrome. It's like, I help you. Because that's the thing. It's no one's going to say me too, unless they've worked through it. They feel comfortable in their own skin. Like, I'll totally, like, somebody talked about imposter syndrome. Like, fuck yeah, I totally get how you felt when I started off my facilitation career, and I was like a fresh-faced, 31-year-old trying to do like, boardroom facilitation. I was like, why, who do I think I am doing this stuff? But, and I could talk about what shifted in me and But yeah, it's certain types of content are just not going to get the engagement because of the nature of how exposed somebody might be if they interact with you.
I just related to a story. Like, I was facilitating a workshop, and I think 2 days before, my post was about the importance of preparation.
Yeah.
And then I had like the decider of the workshop, like the main client, who told me like, so did you prepare it like you said in your post? So I was, you've seen the post. We have a friendly relationship, but you didn't give it a like. So, and then this is where most of people just like you said, like lark. I learned a new word. They look at it, but they don't do anything with it. And it's funny also because when I started my LinkedIn journey, I was like, I need to be perceived as this facilitator expert.
Yeah.
So I'm going to write about facilitation. Then I realized I'm attracting facilitators.
You experienced that too then, yeah?
Yeah, I've seen it. And then I went all in with it. So now it's like, it's voluntary.
Yeah,
like
you're doing it deliberately. It's like, you know what you're doing.
Exactly, the word. But I know it also helps me with my corporate gigs, which like brings me 80% of my revenue, because they see
that you're like
they see it. So we already had those discussions when they understood that the way I work with them is through facilitating. So it gives them this confirmation that Mehdi is the man when it comes to this type of practice. We've seen that the practice works, so why should we look somewhere else to find?
I love that. Yeah, it's a double whammy. Like, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier around, I can't remember if this was before we pressed record, but around, just in case it was before we pressed record, you're talking about how if somebody has multiple, I guess, like products or like different niches. Yeah, right. Do you post about all of them? And I think you've just so clearly explained that you can focus on one and you still have your other niche still see that and go, this is a credible person. So yeah,
you just created the perfect transition, because this is exactly where I wanted to go. Ped. So my situation, if I think I talk about myself selfishly, is that I do all type of facilitation. So I can facilitate strategic workshop, I don't know, design sprint, problem solving, team retreats. So this is where also like I went for the niche of like only talking about facilitation, because then when I outreach to people, when I have chats, I will focus on their perspective, like their sales issues, their marketing issues, and then talk about it. And then of course, the way I'm going to solve it is through facilitation. But it would be impossible for me to be vocal about all of those different type of session I run and problem I solved. So I avoided that. So I loved your post about like, you don't necessarily need to niche, and niching is like can be a bad advice if someone has different type of talents and want to do different type of things, because my generation, we are the generation of generalists. We have different type of skills that we can and value we can bring to people. So it's a very, very long question. But my question to you is like, how do you approach sales when you have different type of services or different type of audience you serve?
Yeah, it's as a generalist and a proud generalist, I have struggled with this as well. And what I found, and I'll tell you a little bit of a story to kind of make this point. I ended up developing a niche set of offerings that are roughly the same thing early in the pandemic, 2020, 2021. Did a lot of digital transformation for charities that had some type of training and development service, but they needed to put it online or make it hybrid or whatever it was. So me and my colleagues, we ultimately did very similar work each time. We created essentially a playbook. We had a series of workshops. We had a series of resources that we just took charities through. Sometimes we did it as cohorts. Sometimes we did it like one-to-one. And we just basically did the same thing. We helped something like 30. So I then realized the power of having a niche offering or a niche product, because it just made it so much easier to pitch, sell, and deliver, because people, we just built momentum, especially within this community that we were in. And so it was just easy for us to find new clients. It was easy for us to put together the pitch, because we've done the same pitch each time and we just tweaked it. And also to deliver it, we didn't have to reinvent the wheel each time. And so since then, I was like, okay, I get the value of having a niche niche offering. That doesn't mean that you've got to completely niche your entire world into this place, but it does also offer an access point to do more work. And so this is the kind of things that we help our clients with now is, well, if you try to do everything for everyone, it's just going to be hard to pierce through the noise. But if you just pick one kind of ideal client that you've just enjoyed working with in the past or you want to work with and go and talk to them, find out what's a common challenge that people have or what's the first problem you can solve. That's your niche offer. Doesn't mean that everything else you do has to be niche, but you can get into an organization that way, do some good work, reveal the next problem, and then do something else with them. And like you said, it's just like once you're in, it becomes easier. You become a partner. And so that's how I see things like that. And even when, my second point about this, even if you then decide to go all in on a particular niche, one thing that I have found, because I've essentially done this, I have my facilitation work I was telling you earlier is I've deliberately started to do less of that to focus more on helping coaches and consultants do their own thing, because I'm finding a new level of creativity when it comes to using my generalist skills to develop this product and all the infrastructure, all the systems, processes, all these other things that I just really enjoy doing for clients. But now I'm the client, like I'm the person that I'm doing it for. And there's something really satisfying about that. Again, I'm not saying that that's the path everyone should go to. I'm just sharing my experience around how suddenly I realized my generalist skills are still completely in play, even though I have a much more of a niche offering. And for some people, it's the way to go, but not for everyone. And I don't want to make any judgment about that either. Like nothing's right or wrong in my opinion.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's a statement, but I will only talk about the clients I know the most, and I would say Belgian or / European. They have this mindset like, I have a problem, I need to go to an expert on this problem. So when you have the niche topic, it's like, because you understand very well the problem space, they see you as an expert in the field, and then it resonates a bit more and you have a bit more chances to work with them. Like if they see you as, you're this facilitation and you can work in any type of industry and it's more the process that will help us and you're not going to bring us like real advice linked to the expertise, then they see it like, maybe it's fluffy, I'm not sure, and because no one really understands facilitation anyway. So that's also the power I see from niching down. And something I recommend facilitators to do as a generalist is that transform your successful workshop into like services. Like for example, I had like a very good workshop with a car manufacturer. They were having like the same challenge that every car manufacturer had, like going into more services when the car was bought. And then I was like, we did all those great stuff and I really understand the situation very well. Then I went to other car manufacturer with the same pitch. And then I told him like, listen, like I facilitated this with this car manufacturer. I was not able to say the name, but those are the things we were able to do in only 3 hours. Then like the speed to make the sale happen was insane compared to the normal process of like explaining that it's like a capability that can be used in so many different ways.
Trust me, it's going to be good. No, I get that. And there was a kind of I don't know what there's a guy called 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀. Am I making this up? I don't know. Anyway, there's a quote.
No, I see him.
Yeah, he's said, if you can articulate the problem better than your clients can, then they trust you to have the solution. There's something like that. I've probably completely bastardized the phrase, but you get the point. And that really...
You feel understood. Like, this guy understands me. Like, he described the problem so well. Like
exactly. And that comes from like the repetition of doing that with a particular audience or like an avatar, because you get the nuances. But more than that, even if you just state it, you immediately get seen as the expert. And I'm going to use one example. I hope my wife doesn't mind. She is an incredible coach, trainer, and facilitator. She does a lot of really good work.
He's a bit biased, but like...
I'm very biased, but she is incredible. And she wanted to develop a kind of a niche product. And she wanted to do like a one-to-one kind of service. And it started off by going communication skills. All right. General. And so she started going down the path of, okay, I want to help with women in male-dominated environments with their presentation skills, right? More specific. She did my program, by the way.
She got a good discount.
Full disclosure. Through the process, she was like, okay, you know what? I've spoken to women in finance. I've spoken to women in tech, both male-dominated environments. I prefer, and I can see I can have more of an impact for women that work in tech. right? So helping with presentation skills for women that work in tech, more specific. And then it's like, okay, well, there's like the roles. What role are they in? Like where, like, customer success or like product manager, like, and then it's sort of morphed into, and I can't, if I can remember it off the top of my head. So women influencing skills for women that working in tech who are moving into roles where they have to influence key stakeholders.
That's what you call a niche.
That's what you call a niche, right? But imagine you're a woman in tech who's just got a role that's influencing senior stakeholders. Are you going to go and work with somebody that specializes in that? Or are you going to go and just type in communication training? Like, it's who would you trust more, right? And it's
definitely. Yeah.
And even if fundamentally the tools, the processes, the principles are the same, one of them is going to just pierce through the noise way more than others. And my wife, she filled her pilot places. She got like 5 people just without even through the whole market research process. People recommended other people. So, oh, I'm not the right fit for this, but I do know who. And she didn't post anything, no cold selling, no ads. And then we have a baby now. So that's put on, like, we've paused that for now for her. But I think that's the power of just taking your generalist skills and going, I'm just going to apply it here, because you can just move a lot quicker.
Yeah, I love that story, and that's great, Pedram. I call this like also the tips I give, like, is packaging your service. Like, imagine like you do a type of workshop and you can package this workshop, like even if it may sound like the same benefits than any type of workshops, the fact that you link it to a specific problem. Like, for example, I do like packaging of my team retreat. So why should you run a team retreat? And then but I could maybe change a couple of words and do the same for, like, I don't know, strategic workshops. But because clients are looking for that, it resonates way more, and then they end up like buying.
Yeah.
So that. Now and we are a bit going to close all the doors that we
let's do it.
When you're a generalist, what do you think? Like, do you still believe the outreach approach is the best one to get leads?
It's a good. I haven't thought about that question, and sitting with it right now, I'd say that the outreach approach, if you're a generalist, is going to make it harder for you, unless you have the intention of focusing your generalist skills towards creating a niche product, because you can actually leverage your generalist credentials to go, hey, you're not going to say it like this, but this is the vibe. It's like, I've done all this great stuff for all these great people, and now I'm looking at how I can take some of the principles I've learned for you type of person, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. So you can definitely piggyback on it, but I don't think you can. I've not tried it, and I would not want to, because if you're sending an outreach message saying, hey, I'm a generalist, what problems do you have? Because I can probably help you.
You're a smart generalist, right? So the way you're going to do it, like, I'm going to analyze, I'm talking to a marketing manager.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to, it's like, hey, okay, who is the marketing manager that worked in the past? What were the issues they had? And then try to put it in this way.
Yeah, there's some, so there is some focus there, right? There is a kind of a general group of people that you're targeting, which step one.
Have you heard the facilitation?
Well, no, but I know that we're going a little bit over, and I hope that this doesn't open a new door, but I got to tell you, like, I mean, I've trained as facilitation has been something I've been doing since I was at university, the year 2000, or I started in the year 2000. I went to university a little bit earlier than that. I'm a fucking old person. But coaching is something I actually trained in, right? And I'm a one-to-one coach. I'm a systems coach. And when you learn these type of skills, and when you learn in this purest sense, it's like, if someone's got a heartbeat and they're alive, you can help them, right? That's the purest sense of being a coach or a facilitator. It's like, it doesn't matter. And that's true. But there's a difference between that being, doing that as a skill, as a craft, and then selling it, actually being a entrepreneur or a freelancer or just whatever it is, self-employed, and selling that. And so those two things you've got to like separate out if you want to actually make a business of it. Otherwise, I hope this doesn't sound too harsh, you risk making your facilitation career much more of a hobby than a viable business. And I just find it really heartbreaking when I see so many talented facilitators just struggle because they can't like pull the plug and just focus for a little bit just to develop one niche offering that can help them do more of the work they love. It's like, just pick something, go with it, open up the doors, and see where that takes you, because you might even just ditch that altogether and go, okay, I see a bigger problem, right? I've got the credibility, the experience now to sell something bigger, something better. And I hope that resonates with some people. And if it doesn't, it's okay.
No, man, and just like, actually, like, I think 2 weeks ago, I've seen someone that was one of my small programs said like, oh, I'm giving up on facilitation. It was fun, but it's like too tough to make a living out of it. And my belief is that even if you're doing it wrong, I mean, like sales, the key to success is volume. So I'm sure if you're sending enough outreach messages, even if they are bad written, even there are sometimes they are not really targeted to the person, like you will make it out.
Yeah. There's always a percentage. Somebody's going to go, might be 1%. Fine, send 100. Like,
but then again, like we talked about him a bit too much, but like the rule of 100 of Alex Hormozi, which is like if you send 100 message per day, like I'm sure at the end of the month you will have one client or at least like some interest. Like the people are not willing to do that because they don't like it. I see or feel like we are creative people. You said it, like we love helping people. This is what we believe is our job. So when we do sales, we have this feeling, it's not our job. But it is. Otherwise, it's your facilitation job. As you said, it's not going to be a job anymore. It's going to be a hobby.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, Pat. Honestly, I love chatting with you. I think this
likewise.
lasts like 2 hours. I just want to come back to one little thing and then, guys, I promise we'll end it up here.
Yeah.
But I think it's something also super important. Like you explained something earlier. You want to be one front within a company to promote the service. Like if you remember, like you said, like you meet the technical buyer, so the person that is interested in your workshop, in your product, whatever you're selling, and then you want to help him to make it happen. And I think this is like, I really wanted to come back on it because I think it's something like people, again, give up a bit too early. You want to make the extra effort, like even the investment for this to happen. So I always ask the question, like, how can you help it? How can I help you make it happen within your organization? And sometimes it's me helping them creating slides.
Yeah.
I will always try to be there. So let me pitch it with you so that I do all the hard part of the selling and you just need to be there. Again, you want this person to become your friend, your stronger supporter. And even if it doesn't happen, this guy is going to be promoted at some point. He's going to move to another company and it will pay off at some point.
Yeah. I see this as part of, there's small actions that you take, and these small and regular actions that you take ultimately compound over time for exactly that reason.
Good. Okay, Pat, it was an amazing episode. I'm sure people will love it. So guys, we will put the Notion template for babies in the show notes. This is the new niche of Pedram, young dads struggling with their babies.
When did they laugh?
No, just kidding. Like, where can people find you? And
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So my name is Pedram Parasmand. I am the only Pedram Parasmand in the world. Don't tell me why I know that, but that's a fact.
Easy.
And if you want more kind of stories, tools, tips, resources, just from the 20 plus years of work I've done as facilitation, 14 years trying to sell this stuff. I have a newsletter, leverageaccelerator.co.
That's right, selling it.
Yeah, trying to sell it, exactly. It's all about like everything's I'd say a hypothesis, an experiment and all that. So yeah, just subscribe there and we share a whole bunch of stuff there.
That's amazing. And I just realized today that I guess Pedram was trying to sell me something. That's why he engaged with me. Of course, with interest, because it's the first step of his process.
I was like,
that I'm going to be on his Notion template. Okay, next.
Like follow up in 2 weeks.
But honestly, I'm a good friend of Nati, and Nati worked with you, I think, in the past, and she only told me good stuff about like this collaboration and how you help her like shipping stuff. So strongly advise you to work with Ped on making a facilitation a living and not a hobby. We'll put the information in the show notes. Guys, we see each other very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me on.
A pleasure, Ped.